The importance of rivers to the balance of the ecosystem cannot be overflogged. World Rivers Day, celebrated every 22nd of September, is another platform to encourage efforts to protect this critical part of the ecosystem. In the next 25 minutes or so, we will be highlighting the theme of this year's celebration and its significance in the campaign to protect the rivers. With me in the studio is the Managing Director, Benin Owena River Basin. With me in the studio is the Managing Director, Benin Owena River Basin Development Authority, BOPDA, Engineer Saliu Osifueme Ahmed.
Thank you very much.
He is the echelon of the authority with the mandate of keeping our rivers safe in catchment states of Delta, Edo, Ikiti, and Ondo. Sir, welcome to the
Thank
program.
you. It's my pleasure.
And just sitting very close to me here is the Executive Director, Planning and Design, Bobda. He is Osikela Omo Ihiroda.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's kick off our program with our first question, and that should come under our theme of the celebration, which is very important. It is the incredible natural, cultural, and recreational values of our rivers and streams in our community. This theme really brings out the issue here today, which, sir, starting off with you. I understand that there's a focus to this theme.
Yes, usually every year in the celebration of the World Rivers Day, there's always a theme which is supposed to direct all efforts of advocacy in the promotion of rivers and their health all over the world. In specific terms, the theme or the sub theme that's of interest to us this year is the one that dwells on protection of our rivers against pollution.
Okay.
That's because the pollution of our rivers and other water bodies poses grave danger to everybody. And so we're emphasizing the need for all to act together and in unison to ensure that our water bodies, our rivers are protected against pollutants and disinfect infection. Thank you.
So we'll move over now to Sikela Omodiporoda. Sir, what vital role really do rivers play? Because the emphasis is on keeping this part of the ecosystem safe. I'm sure a lot of people will be wondering, keep it safe. What does it really do for man and the environment?
Thank you very much. The importance of rivers, and because rivers, they are the lifeblood. They are like the the arteries, similar to what happens to the human physiology, human body. Now, the rivers are the lifeblood of the earth. So it's from there that you get so much from the earth. So it's important we take care of the health of the river because it also gives us a lot of benefits. So the importance of this celebration, the importance of this advocacy is to bring to the fore that rivers are very important. They are the lifeblood of the earth. They ensure the ecosystems are kept and maintained. So the whole essence is for us to the conservation of the rivers and sustainable management of our rivers.
That brings me to this very all important issue, um, the rivers. What are those challenges, sir, in terms of pollution that the rivers usually face?
The greatest challenge that I think our rivers are exposed to are um, industrial and chemical wastes that are dumped, in the rivers or dumped in drainages, which of course eventually find their way to our rivers. Some of agricultural practices also which emphasize a prolific use of
Okay.
chemicals, in food production also get washed, into our rivers. Then communities that also live around rivers oftentimes also resort to defecation, on the waters of the rivers. And the implication of this is that because you are upstream, you pollute the rivers, you are essentially making it difficult or impossible for those who are living downstream towards whom the rivers, river waters flow, to use it. If you consider the fact that the rivers are actually conveyance structure of waters, from one part to the other, any attempt or effort to, make it unfit for use at one end affects, the
Another.
others.
Okay, so a lot of people, I don't know if perhaps you might want to add that because I heard there's a state that is now defecation,
Open
open
defecation free.
defecation free, and I'm sure Edo State would want supposed to be part of that success story.
Yes, it's quite significant. The state is Jigawa State. Jigawa State is declared is the first state in Nigeria to be ODF. Now, ODF, the whole principle about ODF is open defecation, because and that stems from ensuring that we have clean, clean sources. So open defecation now means that in that state you do not have people openly defecating in the environment. So, and in BOBDA, part of our focus, our mandate is to drive and move our states with collaboration with other government agencies towards an ODF state, ODF communities. So it's very significant that one state has attained that status. The United Nations is clamoring for us to all move into an era where we are completely open defecation free.
Free.
So we must, as individuals, also ensure we stop defecating in the open, whether be it in the rivers or elsewhere, because this thing, through from runoff, it contaminates our waterways.
Sir, a lot of people tend to think that safeguarding our rivers, just like security issue, is for the police or security agencies. Also, safeguarding our rivers should be for the agency or authority, mandated by the federal government or government to see to that. What role can the public play, to ensure that our rivers are free from pollution?
As an agency of government, specifically an agency of the Federal Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation, it is our responsibility to advocate and educate people by creating awareness, on the need to keep our waters and water bodies safe, so that they can continue to meet the multifarious needs, that water serves in our lives. But having done that, the responsibility is that of everyone, everyone, because if water is life, and the
Mm.
rivers can be said to be the conveyance of this life, then for us all to live and sustain, we must all be ambassadors of non-pollution of our water bodies. Everyone has a role to play in advocating and also ensuring that your neighbor or your friend or whoever does not, unwittingly, pollute our water bodies. So, quite frankly, it calls for awareness on the part of everybody. It calls for action on the part of everybody, and all of us acting together and in unison, would help achieve this global goal of ensuring that our water bodies, are free of pollutants.
All right, we cannot emphasize enough the consequences. So I think we should revisit that.
Okay,
What is the consequence of river pollution?
very good. Well, once you pollute anything, you abuse the use of that thing. So what happens when we pollute our rivers is that the rivers, we deny ourselves from the benefits that are derivable. We do not have value from the rivers. One of the benefits from the rivers is that, one, it's a transportation way. So once the rivers are polluted through any means, through siltation, sedimentation, we don't have free access for transportation. So we can't move goods and people. Now, one sure way to move things around is through the waterways. Nigeria has not been effective because we've not applied ourselves, applied our rivers to so do. There are other ways that even the contaminants, effluents that get into the rivers become a source of their pollutants, and they affect us. We pass through a season of an epidemic, cholera outbreak.
Mm.
Waterborne diseases is a huge toll on our health facilities or our health bill. And once we keep doing these things, we are adding undue pressure on the system. So an effect, there's cause and effect. So one of the effects of pollution to our rivers is the health of we, the citizens. Another thing that also comes in is that it affects recreational activities. It affects tourism. So even the economic values that we can get from the rivers, we don't get them. So we can't have just do tourism. And there's something that happens to the rivers that is very beneficial to us too, our mental health.
All
When
right.
people go down to the rivers, it eases tension, it calms nerves. So there's a soothing effect either from the sound and sight. So sounds and sights of rivers does a lot to our mental health. And I will wrap up with this. The Holy Book, the Bible says something, I think in Psalm 1, verse 3, it says, it likens the blessed man. He said, the blessed man is like a tree that is planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season, and his leaf does not wither. What that means is that there's so much that is derivable from our rivers. So I implore everyone that we must ensure we take responsibility, like my MD has said,
Hmm.
over the life and the health of our rivers.
All right. And so I am sure you might want to help us project what are some of the projections that the BOPTA, has for the future in terms of how they plan to go about safeguarding our rivers.
First and foremost, we must recognize that, like you have life forms on land, you also have a lot of life forms, in our rivers. Aquatic creatures all survive and sustain, in our rivers. We are advocating, first and foremost, that the right of ways of every river or every stream or water body should be preserved and maintained, because within this right of way there is a certain vegetation cover that needs to be kept and preserved. The indiscriminate felling of trees or the stripping of the lands immediately abutting the rivers, of grasses,
Mm.
unduly leads to, siltation of the water bodies. And when they are silted, the effect is that their water holding capacity is also reduced, and therefore the immediate environment can be, sustainable. Can be liable to flooding.
Okay.
Some of the flooding we have in our communities these days are because the rivers have been stripped, of the vegetal cover around them,
That should
and
otherwise
so
hold the
that should normally contain the water
contain the
and
water.
take it from one point to the other. So it tends to overflow its banks, and creates undesirable results to the neighboring communities. So we in Bobda will continue to advocate that let us respect our rivers for what they serve, so that the waters can continue to meet our human needs for transportation, for agriculture, industrial purposes, even spiritual purposes, because some people depend on the waters for
That's
their
their
spiritual
worship
needs.
center.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So um, I understand that even in law, ignorance is not
An
an
excuse.
excuse, and sometimes I'm sure a lot of advocation has been, going on for different pressing issues, like for instance this need to safeguard our rivers, and I am sure that when enforcement comes into some issues that are as important as keeping where we live safe, I think it will play a long way. Don't you think so,
Yeah,
sir?
sure, sure, it does. Now, this part of this advocacy is to bring that the rivers have got rights. There's rights of the river. So
So just the way humans have
yes, they have
rights.
got rights because they are a living. There's the biodiversity of the rivers, which is an ecosystem which is living. Just as he said, you have living beings on land. They are living much more in the water. So, and once we begin to dump non-biodegradable things like your plastics, your styrofoam, your so many items you dump in these waterways, you seal up the oxygen they breathe. So because they don't degrade, they stay there, and then when they digest these things, the fish we take when they eat these things, it gets in, and we now consume the fish, and that's why the cases of cancer is on the rise. So we must know that for to protect the rivers, we're advocating first bring the rights of the river, and we are calling on all partners to come together so that we can ensure and maintain these rights. To know that the rivers are a sustainable natural resource that God has given to us.
All right, sir. I noticed that we keep talking about individuals, you know, residents around communities and individuals when we talk about pollution of the rivers. What about big corporations that also dump their chemical waste in rivers, and issues of oil spillage? Is this not also an issue that should be, infused in the campaign?
As a matter of fact, such industrial concerns are the biggest culprits, because they build their industries without making adequate provisions for the disposal of their byproducts.
Mm.
And some of them just find our water bodies as a natural outlet, believing that the rivers will convey them, away from their premises. This should not be allowed. Actually, such industrial concerns should be sanctioned, because one of the first things you do in setting up an industry is to carry out, a social, environmental impact assessment, to be able to contain the products of your industrial process. So that must not be allowed, and appropriate sanctions need to be imposed and enforced.
All right. So let's look now into what are some of the other mandates of VOBDA, that will help to safeguard our rivers. We were discussing earlier before the program,
Yes.
and I understand you're saying something about data.
Okay.
So what are those some of the
Yes.
mechanisms,
Put in
by
place.
VOBDA to put in place to safeguard the
Yeah.
rivers?
Yes. Thank you. Even our name, the MD stated, but let me re-echo it. Our name was changed from the Federal Ministry of Water Resources to the Federal Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation. So, and what we've done over the years, Bob has deliberately, intentionally um, gather, brought in equipment to gather data. Data is life, data is key. It's a requisite tool for planning. So what we've done in all our major rivers across our catchment, 4 states, we've installed river gauges. So there are river gauges to collect, collate, analyze data. And that is very important. If you want to do a dam, you want to do a weir, you want to do anything around water, you need data to plan what's the stream flow, to plan so many things. So we have, and that has cost the government a lot of money. We've trained personnel in the hydrological department to handle these things. We have last year we also published what is known as the hydrological yearbook. It's a tool for researchers and other people, for people that want to seeking for data in one way or the other. So we're in collaboration, cooperation with various universities across our catchment on the use of this data. So that's
Okay.
one thing we have done to put in equipment in our rivers
All
for
right.
data collection.
All right. Sir, I understand that every year because I followed your celebrations almost every year, and for some time for last year and then 2022, you know, the exercise, the part of the celebration was planting of trees. Going door to door to tell people in communities, what river celebration is all about. So this year, what's the campaign strategy to push this message of keeping our rivers safe across to the people? What's the strategy this year?
Yes, it's true. Over the last 2, 3 years, we have actually undertaken physical activities around select rivers. One year we were at the Boba River,
Okay.
where we did massive cleaning. In fact, I was completely blown away the volume of refuse, at that point. But we did massive cleaning for a full day, and planted trees around the banks of the river. The idea was, to encourage people first and foremost not to dump refuse, in drains so that they don't get washed to the rivers, and also to let them see the need for the preservation of the vegetation and the ecosystem around our rivers. Last year, we were also at the Ogba River and we carried out the same thing. But this year, our focus is mainly on the advocacy, where we are reaching out to the people, various members of the public, various stakeholders, to carry forward what we have done, even though in a symbolic manner, so that our rivers can continue, to survive and to sustain life.
I don't know if you may have anything to add to that, but however, my main question for you is while you have been doing all these campaigns, are they yielding any results at all? And what are the challenges?
Well, there are quite a number of them. But one significant thing we have done at the agency is to build the infrastructure to help us for for ODF, for sanitation and the rest. That means we know where the one our mandate is to harness water. So we've done a lot of water schemes. Now, what that does is this: is we go to schools, markets, places whereby there are a lot of human traffic, but there are no toilet facilities. So that's one aspect we've done to push this drive. So we have facilities. So the infrastructure to enable people to comply, we have done that, or we are
Okay.
doing. It's an ongoing process. Then this issue of advocacy, we can't. It's eternal vigilance. We can't stop at what we're doing. We keep on appealing and showing them that once they know that this river that they are abusing, that it gives them so much, they will tend to respect the
That
rivers
they
more.
stand to gain more from the
Much from
river.
the river. Yeah, they will gain more from the river than leaving it just to mess it up. So it's a task that we are driving home. Let everybody see himself as an ambassador of the river. Let communities come together. Let the NGOs come together and form, groups. Become vuvuzelas for the rights of the river.
All right. So are there any, specific target group you focus on today? Because this is another opportunity. Though it's like you said, it's an eternal vigilance, but today it's like a special day to pass this message of please, our rivers need to be kept safe. So, and what special message do you have for members of the public now watching you on this issue?
Well, we are a voice and we do not want to be lost. So we're encouraging others to join us, in this effort, from state governments to public and private concerns, and especially every member of the public to see themselves as advocates for our rivers. Because I can't stress it enough, if our rivers do not survive, we too cannot survive.
So, do you have a word to add to a special message for members of the public on this issue? Because, like we said at the beginning of the program, we cannot say it enough.
We all have a role to play for river conservation and sustainable management. We all have a role to play. So I appeal to every one of us to play his or her role to ensure the rivers are conserved and they are sustainably managed for ourselves and for the future generation to come.
Especially for those of us in this part of the country who love seafood a lot.
Exactly.
And so we should, that place where we want to,
Keep
get
having them.
food from, we
Nurture it.
should nurture it.
Nurture it.
Many thanks. We have been discussing on this year's World Rivers Day celebration, and we have had a very, very interesting time with the managing director, Benin Owena River Basin Development Authority, of Dahis engineer Saliu Usifume Ahmed. Sir, many thanks for being part of this program today.
Thank you for having me.
And then just by my side here, we also have another echelon from Bob Dahi. He's the executive director, planning and design, Usikela Omo Ihiroda.
Thank you for having me. It's my
Sir,
pleasure.
I've enjoyed every moment of the program, and I am sure the viewers out there too have gained a lot, and they have been empowered with the knowledge to know that the rivers are part of us. And if you love yourself, you would want to hurt yourself. So also we should have that same compassion for the river and know that it should be safeguarded and kept safe, not just for us, but for future generations yet unborn. Thank you very much for watching. On behalf of the producer and the rest of the crew, I am Obe Yotuba Precise saying bye bye.